This is Mary Hendricks Harris, the superintendent. I want to thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. Our strategic plan will determine our focus for the next 5 years. It's important that our staff and community provide their thoughts as we map the future for our great district. The identification of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is only the first step. I hope you will glean information from the presentation that is helpful as you take the survey. Thank you again for your support of our district.
CEC works with a lot of districts on strategic planning, and as a part of that process, what we look for in partnering with a district is to do stakeholder engagement. And so you can see from the slide that there is a whole process that CEC uses. And right now, we are on the right-hand side in the light blue circle where it says SWOT analysis. And so the strategic plan team has created a SWOT analysis, and that's what we're going to have everyone respond to today with their feedback. That's going to be the first of 3 opportunities for community, staff, parents, and students to respond to the work of the strategic plan team. So this is that first opportunity between the SWOT analysis and the vision retreat, and that's going to be done in person for most folks, but right now you're going to be able to do that online. The second opportunity for community feedback will be after the vision retreat, and that'll be done through a survey that'll be sent out to the entire community. And then the third opportunity will be after the team creates a draft strategic plan, where we will get feedback from the entire community again on that draft strategic plan. One of the things that's important to note is that anyone in the community can follow along with the progress, along with providing feedback on the district's website, where all of the information that the strategic plan team will be working on will be housed.
The Francis Howell School District has a proud history that goes back for more than 100 years, but that century was not without its trials and tribulations. The history of our district is one of growth, change, and perseverance. The district has survived and thrived. In 1932, during the Great Depression, the Hamburg Bank failed and closed with all of the district's money. Many thought it was the end of the district. It wasn't. In 1940, the United States government seized 18,000 acres in the middle of the district and forcefully displaced over 500 residents and built the largest TNT plant the world had ever seen. Everyone was convinced that it was the end of the district. But they were wrong. In 1969, in response to explosive enrollment growth, the district boldly instituted year-round school. Many children thought it was the end of the world. But they were wrong too. That enrollment number in 1969 was almost 4,000 students. 30 years later, that number had more than quadrupled, and the district reached its peak in 2000-2001 at about 18,800 students. There was a decline in enrollment over the next decade, but it has leveled out at about 17,000 students. That number does not include almost 1,000 students in our early childhood program. Our student population has become more diverse in the 21st century. The number of students that identify themselves as white or Caucasian has decreased from about 90% to about 80% over the past 17 years. At the same time, the number of students that are economically disadvantaged, meaning those that qualify for free and reduced price lunches from the federal government, has increased to almost 20%. That number is still well below the state average of 50%, indicating that we do have a fairly prosperous community. One of the ways we measure student behavior and school culture is by reviewing discipline data, here specifically the number of in-school and out-of-school suspensions, and you see that has been decreasing over the years. The district is working hard to keep kids in school so they can learn. Research tells us that removing students from the school community does not change behavior or reduce the likelihood of repeat offenses. The district is implementing restorative practices and committed to improving interventions to build skills and supports for those students who have experienced trauma or who act out. More students than ever before are being diagnosed with mental health disorders, everything from anxiety and depression to ADHD and autism. Schools are seeing an increase in disruptive behaviors at the early childhood and elementary levels, and secondary staff see more students in crisis and in need of direct supports. Increasing supports for these students has a significant impact on school resources. Every year we send a survey to our high school seniors approximately 6 months after graduation and ask them to rate the quality of their education. The survey results show a steady increase in those students that rated their high school education as excellent and a decrease in those that rated as average or below. The senior survey also asks what the district is doing well and students rate us highly in academic areas, but also indicate there is room for improvement in career-ready areas. In 2015, a telephone survey was conducted with 400 randomly selected Francis Howell patrons to learn their views on the district's performance. Participants were asked to rank order what they thought the top priorities for the district's strategic plan should be, and these were the top 5 answers. The topics most frequently mentioned as district strengths were quality education and curriculum and teachers. Areas most often mentioned in need of improvement included spending money and budgeting wisely and improving communication. 99% of respondents said that it was either very important or somewhat important for Francis Howell to remain the highest achieving school district in the county. Francis Howell is a strong believer in the power of culture and climate surveys. The student survey is administered annually to students in the 3rd through 12th grade, and questions 1 through 4 indicate the number of students that agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. Question number 5 was a yes or no question. The results indicate that while not every student likes going to school, they do feel it is a safe environment that is conducive to learning. This slide shows the percentage of students who participate in extracurriculars. At the high school level, more than 2/3 of our students are involved in at least one activity. Research shows this type of attachment to school increases student achievement and decreases the chances that a student will drop out. The parent survey is administered by each school, and buildings are expected to have at least 30% of their parents provide feedback on the survey. Over the past 3 years, more than 95% of parents agree or strongly agree with these 5 statements. Anything less than an 85% in any category would require a building to address the issue in their school improvement plan. Our parents indicate that they believe their children receive a high-quality education in the Francis Howell School District.
As Matt shared, the demographics of our student population is changing. Students attending the Francis Howell School District represent many different cultures, races, and backgrounds. The chart on the left shows our current reality. It is the composition of our current student body, which is becoming more and more diverse. On the right, you see the diversity of our teaching staff. It has remained consistent from year to year. There is a discrepancy between the ethnicity of our student population and our teaching staff. While enrollment has remained steady, all levels of staff have been reduced, causing increased class sizes and less support for students and teachers. Since 2008, the district has eliminated 190 positions. It is important to note that these reductions have been spread out evenly between our certified, our non-certified, and our administrative staff. Francis Howell's goal has been to keep class sizes at or near the DESE desirable standard. This means fewer students per classroom, allowing our teachers to provide individualized instruction and supports to our students. The last several years of staff reductions have increased class sizes and have moved us away from this DESE desirable standard. Represented on the slide are the elementary class averages district-wide. While some sections of our classes are closer to the DESE maximum, we have not had the staffing resources available to address all of these concerns. At all levels, elementary, middle, and high school, class size is important. Our student-to-teacher ratios compared to other St. Charles County school districts and our benchmark districts is shown on the slide. In most data areas, Francis Howell is pleased to share that we are performing above the state average, but in this area we are not. Only one district has a higher ratio. Wentzville is in a unique position in that they are the fastest growing school district in the state. They've opened 2 new elementary schools just this school year. Their quick growth makes it difficult to keep up with the hiring and the building of facilities necessary to lower their ratio. As we watch this data in the years to come, we expect Wentzville's ratios to come down, making Francis Howell one of the districts with the largest student-to-teacher ratio. A common criticism of large school districts is that they are top-heavy, or that there are too many administrators. This slide shows just the opposite. A strong leader is necessary to guide our teachers and ensure the safety of our staff and students. Our administrators wear so many hats in a day. They are responsible for student discipline, parent customer service, building management issues, staff and student safety, training and evaluating our staff, and ensuring that high-quality instruction is occurring each and every day in every classroom. The data here is much like our student-to-teacher ratio. We are not leading in this area and do not perform as well as the state average, which is 188 students to one administrator. In Francis Howell, we have 252 students to each administrator. Research tells us that the number one factor in a child's education is a highly qualified teacher in the classroom. The ability to attract and retain high-performing teachers is crucial to the success of our students. This chart is sorted by teacher starting salary and includes average salary for each comparison district. When comparing salaries, it's important to remember that not all districts have teachers contracted for the same number of workdays or daily work hours, and that average salaries are directly related to years of experience and level of education amongst staff. That's why it's so important that we show you this next slide. In the Francis Howell School District, we have had a strong history of retaining teachers, and our staff values increasing their knowledge with advanced degrees. We've not seen much variance in this data over the last 3 years, but did see a slight increase in 2016 in our average years of experience and the number of teachers that have a master's degree. From year to year, we tracked those teachers who retire or resign from Francis Howell. Each of the last 3 years, on average, 94% of our certified staff returned. We have been able to retain a large majority of our workforce. Tracking retention is important as it means our culture and our climate is a positive one in which people want to come to work. But it also indicates that the investment Francis Howell makes in professionally developing our teachers has an impact on Francis Howell students. We ask teachers who leave the district to complete an exit survey rating their satisfaction of employment on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being extremely satisfied. Over the last 5 years, teachers have rated Francis Howell a 4.7. When teachers do resign, it's mostly for personal reasons like family obligations, relocation, and continuing their education. Rarely do we see someone resign because they are not happy with their work environment. Having a positive culture and climate is important to us and the success of our students. Each year, we ask staff members to answer 5 key questions, and our goal is that 80% of our staff respond agree or strongly agree to these questions. Our 3-year average scores are noted here on the slide. Our current reality is really the perfect storm. While we have enjoyed high retention rates in the past, there are current pressures threatening our continued success rate of attracting and retaining the best and the brightest when it comes to our teachers and our support staff. When we talk about our support staff, an improving economy is shrinking the available candidates for our positions. You can drive throughout our community and count the number of now hiring signs. We are experiencing the lowest unemployment rate in 16 years in St. Charles County. We are no longer looking to hire those who don't have a job, but instead we must recruit and attract employees away from other positions. And many of these positions and other employers are able to offer higher wages than we can as a district. There are 5,000 new jobs in our area, but 2,000 fewer people in the labor force than last year. With our certified teachers, there is a national teacher shortage. Fewer students are choosing the education profession. Nationwide, teacher education enrollments dropped 35% from 2009 to 2014, the most recent year that data is available. Adding to the storm is a decreasing applicant pool in all categories. On a yearly survey, our hiring administrators have moved from strongly agreeing that the HR department provides an ample supply of high-quality candidates to disagreeing in some categories. And finally, Francis Howell's status as an employer of choice has diminished. Frozen salaries for all staff for the last 2 years and cutting many positions have tarnished our reputation as potential applicants are looking for job security.
Francis Howell is one of the largest employers in St. Charles County and an important contributor to the region's economy. Our revenue comes primarily from state and local sources. Property taxes comprise the largest share of local revenue and account for 56% of the district's total operating revenue. The state's basic aid grant, funding for transportation services, and other state revenue accounts for 29% of the district's operating revenue. Federal funding, primarily for students with disabilities, makes up 3% of the total operating revenue, and county sources contribute 2%. All other revenue sources, like revenue from the statewide sales tax and payment of tuition by other districts, account for 10% of the total operating revenue. Many municipalities rely on sales taxes for their revenue. Francis Howell, like all other school districts in the state, relies on taxes assessed against real and personal property. Real and personal property is reassessed every odd-numbered year. The combined value is referred to as our assessed valuation, or AV. Francis Howell is primarily a bedroom community. reflected in the fact that 72% of the district's AV comes from residential property. Personal property, like boats, cars, and motorcycles, accounts for 15% of the total AV, while commercial property accounts for 13%. Agricultural property accounts for less than 1% of the district's total AV. Here are the 5 entities with the largest tax bills in Francis Howell. The top 5 entities account for only 2.5% of the district's total AV. The top 10 account for less than 4% of the district's total AV. The big takeaway here is that the district relies more heavily on local homeowners than on large corporate entities for its tax revenue. This chart shows the total AV by fiscal year. The impact of the recession is clearly evident, with AV dropping by 5% in 2010, an additional 3% in 2012, and again by 4% in 2014. Today's values are now above the pre-recession levels seen in 2009. It is important to note that revenue does not grow in the same proportion as a change in AV. Revenue growth is limited to the lesser of 5% or the CPI as determined by the state auditor. CPI growth for fiscal year 2018 is calculated at 2.1%. So, while our values increased 7.7%, our revenue growth is restricted to 2.1%. Francis Howell has the next to lowest tax rate of our comparison districts. St. Charles, Wentzville, and Fort Zumwalt have all recently passed operating levy increases. The tax rates for the St. Louis County districts include the amount levied by the Special School District of St. Louis County, represented by the darker blue bar on this chart. While St. Charles school districts provide their own special education services funded by their operating levies, districts in St. Louis County have those services provided by Special School District, which assesses its own levy in addition to the levy assessed by the local school district. Education is a people-intensive business, reflected in the fact that 84% of our expenditures are related to salaries and benefits. Purchased services, which include items like transportation, property and liability insurance, and security services, accounts for 12% of our total operating expenditures. 4% of the budget is spent on supplies, such as textbooks, library books, and utilities. In terms of per-pupil expenditures, Francis Howell ranks in the middle of the pack when compared to our benchmark districts. This data is for the 2015-16 school year, the most current year for which a full data set is available. Francis Howell spent $11,174 per student compared to a state average of $10,463. I would note again that the St. Louis County District's expenditures do not include those monies spent on special education services, as those are captured by the Special School District. By statute, the state is to provide funding for 75% of the total allowable costs for student transportation. As you can see from this chart, the level of state funding, represented by the thick blue bar, falls well below that level. Currently, the state provides reimbursement for about 19% of our transportation costs, or $2.3 million of the $11.9 million spent. Similarly, the federal government promised to fund 40% of the costs for providing special education services to students with disabilities. Today, the funding the district receives covers only 26% of our special education expenses. In both cases, promised funding has not been provided, and the level of funding has remained flat or declined, even as our expenditures have increased. This dynamic places a greater burden on the local taxpayer to support these services. For many years, the district had a balanced budget, as current revenues equal or exceeded current expenditures. That picture changed in fiscal year 2014. Since then, the district has made significant reductions in its expenditures in an effort to bring the budget back into balance. We have met that goal. This year's budget is balanced, and we will likely produce a surplus of revenue over expense by the end of the year, similar to what happened in the 2016-17 fiscal year. That's the good news. The bad news is that critical staffing and support services are not being provided due to the budget reductions. These services provided the support for learners across a spectrum especially our struggling learners, and helped the district be one of the top performing districts in the state. Here are some facts that help bring our financial picture into focus. The last operating levy increase, 89 cents, was approved by voters in 2004. In the 6 years following that increase, the board voted to voluntarily reduce its tax rate by 25 cents each year, leading to non-collection of over $30 million in tax revenue. In 2009, the district's assessed values declined for the first time ever. In the intervening 3 two-year reassessment cycles, the district lost over $200 million in assessed value and the accompanying revenue growth. After several years of deficit spending, the district ended last fiscal year with a surplus of revenue over expense. Achieving that surplus meant making significant reductions to our expenditures. Since 2009, the district has made over $25 million of reductions. These cuts impact services and staffing necessary for the district to provide a world-class education. Francis Howell covers over 150 square miles, reaching from I-70 to Augusta and from the Missouri River to beyond New Melly. The district has 28 separate facilities, including 3 early childhood centers, 10 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, 3 high schools, an administration building, and 6 other sites. Those 28 sites include over 2.7 million square feet of building space under roof, with miles of plumbing and wiring and hundreds of mechanical systems. The average Francis Howell School District building is 30 years old. The oldest building is 55 years old, and the newest is 5 years old. Francis Howell's facility department is leanly staffed. 8 groundskeepers are responsible for maintaining 850 acres of grass. This allows for a 2-week cycle of cutting grass, barring any adverse weather. When the grass is dormant, these same individuals are responsible for tree and shrub trimming, snow removal, mulching, leaf removal, field maintenance, playground maintenance, and trash pickup on parking lots and other common areas. A total of 12 skilled tradesmen, assisted by a team of general maintenance technicians, maintain our buildings. As noted previously, our physical plant is over 2.7 million square feet, with miles of plumbing and wiring and hundreds of mechanical systems. Major building components have to be maintained in order to ensure our facilities are clean, dry, safe, and secure. Recalling that our average building is 30 years old, you can imagine that there is a need for significant, ongoing investment in the preservation of our physical plant. To help put this in perspective, half of our heating and air conditioning systems will reach the end of their life expectancy in the next 5 years. Replacing these systems alone is estimated to cost upwards of $25 million. Similarly, with dozens of buses and often hundreds of cars per day, our parking lots are in need of significant maintenance. Replacing parking lots district-wide could cost as much as $10 million. The district is at a critical juncture in terms of facilities. Do we rebuild our oldest buildings? The cost to replace half of them could reach $125 million based on square footage costs. Or do we make significant investments in replacing aging and outdated systems at an estimated cost of $25 million? Critical to this decision is the question of whether buildings over 50 years old can adequately meet the learning needs of students today and for the next 50 years. The district's total population has declined from its peak of almost 19,000 students and is now stable at around 17,000 students. But this doesn't tell the whole story. There are certain parts of the district that are experiencing significant growth. Warren Elementary School, in particular, is experiencing an enrollment surge brought on by new construction. Several new subdivisions in the Warren attendance area are adding hundreds of new homes. The district is reviewing options on how best to alleviate the potential overcrowding at Warren. The board will receive a report later this fall with recommendations of how best to address this population growth. Safety and security of our students and staff is of paramount importance. Most of our buildings were constructed before tragic events like Columbine and Sandy Hook changed how we think about school security. Today, entrance to our buildings is more controlled, and our students practice how to keep themselves safe in the event of an intruder on campus. The district has made and continues to make necessary investments in measures designed to keep our campuses safe and secure.
The next few slides provide information about the state of technology in the district. The first two slides include some technology data point comparisons with our benchmark districts. Since the benchmark districts vary in size, the graphs will display data ratios based on the number of K-12 students. As a point of clarification, data from Pattonville, which is one of our benchmark districts, is not on our technology slides as data was unavailable. The first chart shows a comparison of the number of student devices available at each district. The ratios were derived by taking the number of student devices by the number of K-12 students in each district. If a district has a device for every student, then the ratio would be 1:1 and would be shown on the chart with the number 1. On the chart, you can see Francis Howell School District has a ratio of 1.6, which means there is one device for every 1.6 students. As you can see on the chart, Francis Howell School District ranks in the middle of our benchmark districts in regards to the number of student devices. Our device-to-student ratio includes all devices such as desktops, laptops, Chromebooks, iPads, and other tablets. The devices included in our calculation range from brand new devices to devices which may be 6, 7, or 8 years old. For example, last year our average district device age was 5.5 years old. Our district device number also includes devices from a variety of funding sources such as district purchases, grants, title funds, and PTO purchase donations. Our PTOs have been extremely generous, and their donations account for around 4 to 6% of our student devices. Another example of aging technology in the district is the number of old smartboards. 17% of our district smartboards are 12 to 15 years old. The next chart shows the comparisons of IT technology spending per student for the 2016-2017 school year. You can see on the right, St. Charles City and Orchard Farm had the highest technology spending per student. Francis Howell School District has the second lowest per pupil spending when compared to our benchmark districts. Now let's take a look at the 6-year history of the Francis Howell School District technology operating budget. You can see a 3-year upward trend starting in school year 2013 as the integration of technology in our schools and classrooms was becoming more prevalent. Then in school year 2016, there was a dramatic decrease in the technology budget as technology spending was impacted by the district budget cuts. The area that was most affected by the cuts was the device refresh cycle. For school year 2016 and 2017, device updates were put on hold. Not updating computers and devices for 2 years meant schools and students have had to use an increasingly aging fleet of computers and devices. As I mentioned earlier, the average age of devices last year was around 5.5 years, whereas a typical device becomes outdated in around 5 to 6 years. The graph shows slight increases in the technology budget over the last 2 years, yet the technology budget is just now getting back to the levels of 4 and 5 years ago. Even though the device refresh cycle has been reinstituted this school year, we will be playing catch up the next few years as the result of the 2-year freeze. Thank you.
Public school districts in the state of Missouri are held accountable to 5 standards. The academic data in this presentation will be organized around these 5 standards. Standard 1, academic achievement, refers to the overall performance of all students on state assessments. Standard 2, subgroup achievement, refers to the overall performance of students that are African American, Hispanic, English learners, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged students on state assessments. Standard 3, college and career readiness, refers to the graduate performance on assessment that the state identifies as measures of college and career readiness, including graduate ACT performance, graduate advanced placement performance, and post-high school placement. Standard 4 attendance refers to the overall percentage of students attending 90% of the time. And finally, Standard 5, graduation rate, refers to the percent of graduates that graduate in 4 years. This graph shows how Francis Howell ranks in overall academic performance on state assessments compared to other St. Charles County districts and benchmark districts in St. Louis County. The overall scores are calculated based on student performance on state assessments in math, English, science, and social studies. Scores can range anywhere from 100 to 500. As you can see, Francis Howell is the highest performing district in St. Charles County. Here are our district's combined state assessment score organized by level: elementary, middle, and high school. The houses represent Francis Howell schools. As you can see, all of our schools perform above the state average. However, you will notice the academic achievement outcomes vary across the district. This slide provides data comparing our subgroup students, which the state defines as students that are either African American, Hispanic, English learners, students with disabilities, or economically disadvantaged, with students that do not fall into one of those groups. We have included data points that correlate with the accountability standards. As you can see from this slide, the data points vary between the two groups.
Most of our students graduate with an ACT score. Francis Howell's graduate composite score is higher than the state average, and it's the highest in St. Charles County. However, Parkway and Rockwood graduates from two of our benchmark districts perform significantly higher than our graduates. The ACT composite scores noted on the chart may appear similar. However, the difference in the scores between Missouri and Francis Howell, and then Francis Howell and Rockwood and Parkway, is large enough to be caused by something other than chance. It is likely the practices in Francis Howell, Rockwood, and Parkway have had an impact on student ACT scores. ACT also provides information regarding college readiness. ACT has set benchmark scores in each tested content area. Students who achieve the benchmark levels on the ACT subject areas have a greater chance of earning a B or higher in the corresponding course in college. The percent of graduates who met ACT's college readiness benchmark scores in all 4 subject areas in 2017 from Francis Howell is higher than Missouri and national. Even though we have a higher percentage of students being college ready in all 4 subject areas, we know that growing in this area will ensure more student success in college and college degree completion. The Advanced Placement Curriculum, administered by the College Board, consists of standardized high school courses that are roughly equivalent to undergraduate college courses. After completing an AP course, students typically take the AP exam in that subject, which can earn them college credits and accelerated placement in college depending on the score. While earning college credit is a key measure for students taking AP courses, we cannot overlook the lifelong skills they learn and the impact that can have on their success. In recent years, we have initiated concerted efforts to increase AP enrollment, AP exam participation, and identification of students who have not accessed pre-AP courses but have the potential to be successful in an AP course. For students who plan to attend college, stretching themselves to take at least one AP course in high school is one way to be college ready. While we have made some improvements in our AP enrollment and AP exam participation, we still have growth in this area. Half of our graduates take an AP course, but close to 80% of our graduates attend a 2- or 4-year college after high school. Not all of our students enrolled in AP courses end up taking the AP exam. And as we grow our AP program, we want to maintain or increase our AP exam passing rate. Here we see what our graduates are doing within 6 months of high school graduation. Almost 80% of Francis Howell graduates enroll in a 2- or 4-year college. The other percent includes 2.5% of our graduates who go into the military. In Missouri, 48% of public high school graduates that begin a degree program in a public Missouri university, including an associate's degree, complete that degree program within 6 years. However, in Francis Howell, that completion percentage is 56%. Here you can see our 5-year averages for attendance and graduation. We have consistently high rates in both areas. Our attendance and graduation rates are higher than districts in St. Charles County and similar to other benchmark districts. Over the past several years, we have implemented intentional programs and procedures that positively impact both attendance and 4-year graduation rates. Since reading is connected to student achievement, we also track data regarding the percentage of students reading at or above grade level. The percentage of 3rd through 8th grade students reading at or above grade level has remained steady between 75% and 77%. Our goal is to be at the 80% mark of students reading at or above grade level.
As we close this presentation, I want to introduce you to some points of pride for our district. Throughout the presentation, you heard our current reality in many areas, some celebrations and some opportunities for improvement. I don't want us to lose sight of all that we have accomplished that didn't necessarily fit into a data presentation. For the 5th consecutive year, we have earned a place on the Post-Dispatch Top Workplace. This award signifies our employees believe this is a good place to work. We have earned, for the 11th year, the Association of Business Officials Meritorious Budget Award for having a technical and transparent budget process. Our early childhood programs have been recognized as outstanding models by the state. We are on the Niche Best Districts list. Niche uses a combination of student data and parent satisfaction data to rate districts. We are on the list of top school districts on social media in the USA, and our students are performing. We have earned more than 99% of our state accreditation points, have made progress with the number of students reading on grade level, and our students are in the top 5% of the state on state assessments. I cannot include all the building and student recognitions, or we would be here all night. We have accomplished many things because we've had clarity with where we want to go. I understand that there may be some that believe this is about our next levy. And as you get ready to provide input, I don't want us to ignore our fiscal current reality, but please know this is much bigger. As a community, we need to decide what we want to be in all areas, where we should spend our time, energy, and effort, what is going to make Francis Howell great.